For technology.
Yeah, yeah, you're
Okay,
fine
it
now.
says it's on air live now, so we should be okay. We'll see how long this lasts.
Hooray!
Really quickly, today, happy Thursday, everybody. It's Backdrop Day. It is early May. We're working on Backdrop CMS because there's a cost that comes with change. We're working on a content management system that is lightweight with comparable features to Drupal 8, but more on architecture more similar to that of Drupal 7. Along the way, we're going to be fixing bugs, including bug fixes that went into Drupal 7 and Drupal 8, and any others that we find along the way. And we're going to be simplifying existing systems and adding new features where those two things are possible without adding too much change. We're hoping to have Backdrop 1.0 out in June or July, sometime this summer. We're leaning more towards July based on the amount of stuff that we want to change. We'll eventually come up with a release date. When we decide on a release date, we'll stick to it, and anything that doesn't get done before that date will have to happen in a follow-up release. But we will be doing follow-up releases shortly thereafter, so new features can be added whenever we want. Should be good. Right now, we've got a couple of things we're working on that will keep us up to date with Drupal, including a bunch of fixes that have gone into Drupal 7. We need to cross-port over to Backdrop. We have several meta issues with only a couple of issues remaining. I think we have one new one, which we added last week, which we've made a little bit of progress on since then, but not much. And we have one remaining from our original set of Drupal 7 cross-port issues, with I think about half done, maybe a little more than half done. We also have security updates that have gone into Drupal 7. So these are major issues that have been resolved in 7. We also need to resolve them in Backdrop. There's only 2 of those remaining. One is an old one that we're trying to find a better solution for, and one is a more recent one that we just haven't incorporated those fixes yet. But we're pretty close on those. And then a much larger list, we have to look at all of the commits that have been made to Drupal 8 since we forked, decide whether we want to include those kinds of changes, and if so, decide if we can use the existing change, the one that went into Drupal 8, or if we need to do it differently for Backdrop. Of those, there are about 7,000 commits that we need to look at. We've already pared that list down a lot by removing conversions from one system to another, and we're left with things like cleaning up, for example, class names. Do we want to clean up class names in Backdrop the same way they were cleaned up in Drupal 8 or not? And if not, we can ignore those patches. But do we want to clean them up differently? If we want to do them differently, we need to think about what we want to do and then do that same work ourselves. So we've got some work there that is just needs to be thought about, but maybe is not critical to our cause. That's just an example. There's more stuff like that as well. So we have currently 4 issues, which are the oldest ones, going back from oldest to newest, of changes that happened to Drupal 8 that we have already pruned the list down, figured out what we want, what we don't want, and made metas of those, which we can work on. And we've also started separating out things that are really important to us. So anything related to CSS or JavaScript changes, or for example, updating the admin theme have all been pulled out into their own meta issues, and we can work through those as subsets of the master list of Drupal 8 changes that we want. We have a few things that are major blockers for the 1.0 release of Backdrop. 3 things in particular. We have the blocks and layouts initiative. We want to solve the problem with placing blocks on the page, which has been around in Drupal for quite a long time. We have the Views in Core initiative, which is taking Views, the #1 contributed module for Drupal, and putting it into Core for Backdrop. It's in Core for Drupal 8 as well. We want to make sure we have that same feature for us. And the Configuration Management initiative. So this is the ability to deploy configuration changes from environment to environment, the ability to get them into code and version control them. And of all of these systems, we've been making big progress on all of them. Both the subsystem for CMI is in Core and the subsystem for Views is in Core. We've got to start on all of the conversions of meta issues from one system to the other, which is great. And we're currently working on blocks and layouts. We've got a user interface that we've pared down a little bit from the panel's user interface, and we're going to be working on creating templates and the ability to place blocks on the page in those templates as well. So we're making a lot of progress. We could still use some help. If anyone wants to work on those things, that would be a good place to jump in. Other things that we're working on that are not release blockers, but that are equally important to us, are #1, user experience improvements. And we've got a bunch of stuff we're working on in this front recently as well. We want to put a rich text editor in Core. That's something that's high on our to-do list. We want to put alternative to the toolbar in Fork. We've had a long-standing issue in our queue about wanting to make the toolbar responsive or wanting to make it a drop-down or wanting to make it better than the one that's in 7. And Nate has been doing a lot of great work on our new toolbar. Nate, do you want to give us a little update on what you've been doing last week?
Yeah, totally. So actually this last week I was doing a bunch of work on the style guide, actually, trying to make it so that Julia could get rolling on building out the new administration theme.
That's the next issue.
What? Oh, okay. Well, anyway, it came out of that. So while working on the style guide business, our template page also included the administration menu, which I noticed, so like in order to have all of the markup on the page so that Julia could style all of it, we need to have it kind of finalized what that markup is actually going to do. And in the case of the toolbar, the old toolbar that is now in Backdrop is basically the Drupal 7 toolbar. But once we removed shortcut module, basically all the toolbar module ever was a list of links and shortcuts. It basically only existed to provide shortcuts. And when we removed shortcut module, really the module didn't serve any purpose anymore other than a list of top-level links, which is pretty much worthless. So we looked at how we can improve the usability of that. Since we don't have shortcuts, really the most useful thing to provide is something like administration menu, the Drupal contributed module, that provides top-level drop-down links to make it so you can quickly navigate to any section of the administration really quickly. So, so we looked at all of the different options between Drupal 8's toolbar, Drupal 7's toolbar, the Drupal 8 backport called navbar, and admin menu. And really, of all of those, admin menu is the closest one to what we want to accomplish, and it's also the most well-tested. But unfortunately, it's not responsive or mobile or touch-friendly. So this past week, I went through and I rewrote it in a way that made it so that it's compatible with touch devices, so you can use it on tablets and on iPhones and things like that. And also responsive, so that when it doesn't have enough room, it collapses down into a smaller number of drop-downs so that it can fit on a small screen. So it all looks really good. It's basically like admin menu light. Like we removed a bunch of the contrib functionality, the stuff that doesn't really belong in core, but other than removing contrib functionality like integration with devel module and things like that, it's really basically a responsive version of admin menu, which is really cool. And there's the issue for that. It's issue 189, and there's a pull request that's filed for it, and it just needs review.
Neat question. Should we tweet about these kind of awesome things that we're adding to core, and should we tweet about them when they need review, or should we tweet about them when they're added, just so kind of the world that's following us on Twitter knows what we're doing?
You know, I'm not sure. I kind of feel like it might be better to tweet it after it's actually done, because there's a good chance that we'll end up with like more resistance than we would actually like.
More resistance than assistance.
Right, resistance over assistance. So I hopefully what will end up happening is we'll tweet the awesome changes after they've happened, and then that will encourage people to look into the other changes we're doing and actively participate.
Okay.
Hopefully.
I have a question. Do we have a list of a thing? Like, do we have a list of all the changes? So we can, when we treat them to the whole list, so they can see what has been changed and what's going on the changes.
Right. We don't have a complete like change log. Like Drupal 8 maintains a changelog.txt file, which is a little bit on the primitive side. What we're wanting to do is once we get the API website up, put our change logs there so that all of the API changes exist there. But functionality changes, like adding admin menu, isn't really, I guess that's an API change too, but we don't have a place for feature lists yet. What was that, Jen?
We could have like an additions section, or I mean, we're going to need a blog post for this information in it eventually. We could just start a page somewhere that's like what you need to know about Backdrop.
Right. Yeah. Ideally, what we'll do is we'll build a features page for Backdrop, basically promoting its functionality. I think that would be kind of the best way to go about this.
Okay. That sounds good. All right, so we talked a little bit about the new admin menu. I'm super excited about it. It looks really great, Nate. Thanks for all your work on that. You alluded to the admin style guide. I reorganized the bullets so that hopefully they'll be a little bit better for next week. But we also did a bunch of work on that last week. Julia volunteered some of her design skills, and when she started going to town on doing things like updating our fonts on the admin feed, we're like, how can we make this easier for her? And we looked at the work that Drupal 8 did by creating a style guide, designing all of the elements, and then putting it together into a bunch of sub-issues for 8. And we decided that we need to kind of go through that same process of taking more of a holistic approach to how do we want the theme to look. And so Nate started importing style guide module, Backdrop, and then took only what we need of it from the admin theme perspective and created a static HTML file that we can give to Julia to update. So we've made a bunch of progress in that respect. All right, am I unfrozen?
Yeah, you're fine now.
Okay, good. So we have delivered the static HTML version of the style guide to Julia. She's going to do kind of a holistic overview of all of our elements, what they need to look, and help tell us which of the patches from Drupal 8 we can port versus which things we need to kind of redesign or even rewrite the HTML for ourselves, which will be great. She's not in this meeting, but I'm super excited about her being involved and wanted to say thank you, even if she's not here to hear it. So that's making a lot of progress too. We're really excited about that. I don't remember, Nate, did we do an update last week on the dialogue system? Should we maybe just reiterate the fact that dialogues are in?
Yeah, the dialogue issue, basically we have the full API for dialogues, which for the most part is really going to come into play with like a blocker for the rich text editor, because all of the image and file handling is done through dialogues. But the update this week, last week we merged in the dialogues and have the whole API in place. This week the conversion of views is the only other thing that currently uses dialogues in core. The views conversion to dialogues is complete and also is sitting there needing review in issue 223. So that's probably going to get merged in later this week, unless we find any other problems with it. But for the most part, it's a backport from Drupal 8, so fairly stable. But yeah, it's working fully as far as I can tell, and it probably just needs another set of eyeballs.
So in terms of needs review, someone would need to test the pull request to make sure it actually works. And what kind of a code review do you want on that? Just like a eyeball over, make sure there's nothing in there that stands out as being horrible, or? Right.
Well, I guess, I mean, a comprehensive code review wouldn't hurt, really, even though most of it is code ported from Drupal 8. It's good to get a review of the entire thing. Like, I mean, a lot of times we find new bugs that weren't caught in the first review from Drupal 8. So, so I think whatever efforts people can contribute, then that would be great. I mean, we don't really have the luxury of really waiting on this stuff too long. So even if we don't get too extensive of a review this week, it'll probably be going in anyway.
Okay. So if anyone can review that, that would be great. If not, we'll catch bugs later, if they exist. All right. So then the only other thing we're trying to improve in terms of our user experience is some terminology changes. There's a meta issue. If you guys are interested in bike shedding that, you can go take a look over there. We're going to leave it up for a little bit longer. We also had some more ideas earlier this week about renaming menus that I haven't added to that issue yet, but I'll add those today, and you guys can take a look at those too. And then eventually we'll decide which of those we want to do and which ones we don't. And then the last issue, which is a minor project, won't hold up our release, but something that's near and dear to my heart, is cleaning up the theme system. There are a couple of major things that will solve critical bugs that were open in Drupal 7 that I want to take care of, and then the rest of it is just to kind of improve the themer experience, so making sure that things are named in a way that makes sense, making sure that you're not creating 2 templates when you only need 1, making sure that the same template is used in similar places all over Drupal, stuff like that. It's not too much work. In Drupal 8 we did all of this stuff, plus all of the conversions from PHP templates to Twig templates. What we're looking for in Backdrop is all of the cleanup without any of the conversions. And I don't think there's too much. I think we can kind of break through those. And starting next week, I will have a handful of interns at my disposal, which I am planning to unleash on theme system cleanup tasks. So I think that might be a pretty good place for them to start. So hopefully we can start seeing some progress on that here soon, too. The next portion of our meeting is a place where we get updates from the PMC. We currently have no issues that have been escalated to PMC status, so we have no updates. We are currently looking for new members for our PMC. We've got people basically will be nominated from our community, and if they accept, then they can join the PMC. So we're keeping our eye out on anyone who is particularly active or particularly passionate. But right now our pool of people who are looking at are coming primarily from activity in our GitHub issue queue. So if you want to contribute to Backdrop but don't find a place to do it in the issue queue, let us know, and we can try and find other places where you can be useful that might not involve writing code. We want to make sure we get people in our PMC who are non-code writers too. So if you're interested, let us know. We'll put you on the radar and keep an eye on your awesome progress over the near future. Other things we're working on, we talked a little about earlier, the API site. That's where we're going to be putting our change records. It's also probably a good place to start on a draft of our listed features. When that's ready, it'll end up on our public website. But until we have something concrete, it should probably live there. We're also working on an update server. Actually, I'm not sure anyone's working on that yet. We're thinking about an update server. If anyone wants to work on it, that's fine. And I think we have a couple people thinking about the GitHub service for Backdrop as well. Nate and I recently came up with some good ideas about how to manage contrib projects, which was a little different than our first attempt. So we might document that somewhere for some feedback, see what people think on that as well. And then our primary website is up. We're working on a couple of new sections, a showcase section where we can demonstrate sites built with Backdrop, and the modules and themes section, which of course will integrate with our idea for how to manage contrib projects on GitHub. Every Thursday after this meeting, we have a little sprint. We all meet in IRC and we try and do as much as we can. Today, I'm actually going to be taking off after this meeting because I have a horse show to go compete in. Everyone else should meet on IRC and continue working, and I'll try and make up my non-sprint time today by working on Backdrop over the weekend. So hopefully I'll be able to still contribute. And then we've got a couple of official Drupal events this summer where we'll be working on Backdrop as well. We're going to be hosting a sprint at the Drupal Corn Camp this summer. We're trying to sponsor all of the Drupal 8 developments happening there, as well as all of the Backdrop development. We're going to be working in the same room, making friends, sharing ideas, that kind of stuff. So that'll be fun. And then we're going to try and contribute something to Twin Cities Drupal Camp as well, but that's still not quite nailed down. Let's see. Next weekend is Drupal Camp Ireland, so if anyone is in Dublin and wants to tell them about Backdrop, that would be awesome. And then right around the corner we have DrupalCon Austin. I know a whole bunch of our friends are getting super excited about it here. I won't be there. Nate will be there. If you've got questions about how Backdrop's going on, feel free to come up and ask him about it. He'll probably be thinking about it while he's there, if not working on it in the back row of some session, hammering on modals or WYSIWYG or whatever it is you're going to be working on. So definitely come talk to him, hit him up at parties, that kind of thing. And then, yeah, there's a whole bunch of other stuff on our list that coming up where we'd like to kind of talk to more people about Backdrop. Is there anything else that needs to be addressed in this meeting Any questions, any comments?
I don't have anything else. Andy, do you have anything?
Hi, Andy.
Hi.
Welcome back.
You guys just maybe I missed it. I've been away for a little bit. Do you have an update on Drupal Camp Mexico, or did you attend?
Yes. So Nate and I were at Drupal Camp Mexico 2 weeks ago. We did a keynote on Backdrop, which I think went really well. They put it on Thursday, which was Symphony Day. And so first thing in the morning, they had a keynote by a Symphony speaker who was talking about how Symphony and Drupal 8 will work together. And they had a whole track all day long of a whole bunch of talks that were specifically for Symphony, which was really interesting. And at the end of the day, they had Backdrop talk that was like, okay, you've all learned a ton about Symphony today. Let's look at an alternative. And so we got to kind of give our pitch. We ended up making really good friends with the Symphony speaker. We got to talk to them a lot about, their experience working on GitHub, which is something that we could really learn a lot about. And I think the overall reception from the camp went really well. We had a whole bunch of people come up to us afterwards and say, we need this in Mexico, we need this for our company. It was just a really kind of a good reinforcement that we're on the right track, and there are people who are, curious about what we're doing and interested in the product. So I thought it went really well.
Mm-hmm. Totally.
So yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. We gave them a brief update last week, but you weren't here. Same. I really like all of the guys from Mexico. They're doing a really good job with the camp. They're doing a really good job of trying to be inclusive and cover all topics. They're really passionate about Drupal. It's good to see that. And it was really, really just fun to be down there. I really like Mexico. So good people, good passion. It's great. Is there anything else? So one thing, Andy, you might be particularly interested in is last week Nate created a new meta issue of changes that happened to Drupal 7. I think it's issue number 222. So if you're interested in reapplying your patch applying machine to the latest Drupal 7 crossport issue, that might be a great place for you to get started. It's a lot shorter than all of the other issues that you've been working on, so it's probably something you could knock out in a weekend or something if you want to do that.
Okay.
No pressure. Just if you wanted to, it's there.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking for something to do. Actually, maybe this is one of the first times I've done Backdrop on Thursday. Instead of the weekend. I have a question here. How many were in the Backdrop session from Arliski?
Oh, I don't know. It was pretty much the entire camp, so probably, I don't know, Jen, do you want to estimate, like maybe 120?
7,500, yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
It was a keynote, so they had everyone in the same room. It was at the end of the day, so I have a feeling a couple of people probably ditched early. I have some of the people who were there for Symphony who weren't interested in Drupal might not have been in attendance, but the room was pretty full. It got a pretty good reception. So.
Okay. Well, I think that does it for this phone call. Thanks everybody for joining. Sorry for all of the technical issues and problems. I'm glad we finally got to meet up eventually. Okay, but thanks so much, guys, and I'll still be in IRC even though Jen won't be today, and we'll be working away. We'll talk with you guys next week.
All right, thanks everyone.
All right, bye guys.